You're kind of being put on this pedestal. And when I say you, I mean the discrimination that you experience, the weeks, months, whatever of pain that you suffered is put on a pedestal to be examined and poked at and judged. I've been posting a lot on my page about kind of more my personal struggles and like my day-to-day things. I haven't spent a lot of time giving advice, which is something that I really wanted to do while I was going through this EEOC process, because obviously I'm going through it and I'm not finding a lot out there in terms of the little things that you want to know. I'm not finding help out there for it. So I want to take a few minutes and make sure that I really sit down and just knowledge vomit out what I've got to say. I'm always putting it off because I feel like I want to do this kind of formal, well-edited video, but I can't not put out content because it's not good enough. My knowledge is valuable is what I'm trying to tell myself here. Things about experiencing workplace discrimination and the EEOC process that you go through afterwards when you're trying to recover for all the things that you were forced to go through, right? Number one, open up the EEOC process as soon as possible. I did not contact the EEOC even when I knew that I wanted to, because I thought that the process would happen a little bit quickly and I wasn't ready for it. I wanted to keep trying to communicate with my company and see if we could work it out. And I was worried that there was maybe a misunderstanding somewhere, to be completely honest. So I did not open the process until the end of November, when my discrimination really kind of started in February. So I contacted the EEOC online at the end of November, and the earliest that they could get me in for just the intake interview to even see if I experienced discrimination, I have to wait until April 26th, the soonest that they could get me in. So end of November to end of April. I contacted them recently about possibly moving up my date because I'm having so much trouble with my former company. And no, they cannot move up my date. So if you're experiencing workplace discrimination in any way, just open the process. Your employer doesn't know that you opened it, so they have no idea. Don't be worried about them finding out. Just don't tell them. You can always back out and cancel your appointment if things work out. But I very much recommend getting a date on the books as soon as you can. Next is just some information about employment law. First of all, a lawyer isn't just like a lawyer. A lawyer has different fields of law that they know are specialized in, they're comfortable covering, things like that. Did not know that. I knew that I needed to contact an employment lawyer, but even within employment lawyers, some do contract negotiations, some do settlement negotiations, some do ADA violations or discrimination cases like I'm trying to pursue. You do want to find somebody that works in whatever claim you're making or has experience in whatever claim you're looking to make. Additionally, lawyers out there are not just all for the employee. I mean, yeah, I guess, but I didn't think about that. And so as I've been looking for lawyers, I was really adamant about it in the beginning of, I don't want to work with any lawyer that works with corporations. I only want to work with somebody who is dedicated to the average Joe like me who is taking on a company, and not somebody that supports companies in trampling over people like me. That is turning out to be difficult because employment law isn't the best money for the lawyer, especially small-time employment cases, which is what everybody's kind of assuming my case is, even though I honestly believe it to be more of like a whistleblower case, but I'll get into that in the future. Because in theory, all that I'm really going to get payout-wise is my missed time, prior wages, a little bit of future wages. These are all like things that you argue for and that you work towards finding what that value is. But really, you're only going to get the money that you personally lost from your salary and your benefits. And there's not this big, huge payout like in other court cases. So a lot of times lawyers don't want to really take on just simple, basic discrimination, employment law cases, really probably only going to make kind of like their hourly rate. So finding an employment lawyer is not the easiest, especially if you're getting picky about maybe working with only a female. I tried that, went out the door right away. I looked into minority lawyers. Very difficult to find. I've searched employment lawyer, ADA, discrimination, neurodivergent, Illinois. All the combinations of that I have Googled in an attempt to find somebody who has experience in pursuing a case focused on neurodiversity. Nobody. I can't find anything. And I'm looking in like downtown Chicago, where you would think that there has to be a firm or something that maybe specializes in neurodivergence or autism. No, nothing. So it's not really the shopping experience that I was expecting out of trying to find a lawyer. In my experience, at least, this is, again, just my lived experience, but I'm having trouble not only finding a lawyer that fits kind of like the profile that I ideally would like. I can't even find an old white guy to take my case. Along those same lines, it's also difficult because the lawyers don't want the sloppy cases. They want the easy, cut and dry. Yeah, there was pretty obviously some discrimination. We're not going to have to do too much back and forth, too much trying to find these big numbers for like emotional distress. A faster turnaround of a case seems to be kind of the preferred. So my case is longer. It's a year of discrimination. There were multiple steps that I took with HR prior to deciding to pursue a discrimination case. And so I'm having trouble finding somebody that wants to take it because it's a little bit too complex. In employment law, you are not going to find very many contingency offers. So I haven't found a single lawyer, not just people that I've like contacted, like I haven't found a single lawyer in Illinois that's an employment lawyer that offers contingency upfront. And I understand that like obviously, they're not just going to plaster that on the front page or anything. But from what I'm understanding, no contingencies because you don't know if you're going to win. You don't know how this is all going to work out. And they really want the money up front out of your pocket. And then you cross your fingers that your previous employer covers legal fees by the end. But that can be years down the line. I could go on forever about how wrong that is and how the burden is so heavily put on the employee. And it is such a terrifying experience to know that you're taking on thousands of dollars in legal fees in the hopes of getting back a salary that you should have had. It's really probably like not that great. It's not like everybody's making six figures. My money back isn't going to be that much, but it's really on the principle for me at this point and healing. But if I was only pursuing this to get the money lost back, I would have to risk so much of my money up front in the hopes of getting that back. And that's terrifying. There are a lot of red flags that you'll accidentally say on your initial interviews with lawyers. It's important to kind of learn the red flags, I guess, and kind of learn what makes an easy case from a sloppy case. You have to be careful in how you say things and how you present yourself in a call so that you're not saying any red flags that cause them to just push your case off to the side. Let's talk about your initial calls with a lawyer. I hate phone calls. I struggle with them a lot, but obviously I need to do phone calls with lawyers to really get the information across. But something I wasn't prepared for was that it's not just like a normal phone call that like I don't enjoy. It's a very intense phone call that I don't enjoy. It's going to be pretty rushed. The lawyers are probably going to be pretty cold towards you. They're really steering the conversation and wanting to get their questions answered, whatever their questions are. And in my experience, don't really want to offer you a lot of time to explain what you think are the big key pivotal moments, that will come later. My initial phone calls have ranged from 8 minutes to over an hour and a half. You don't really know what you're going to get until you take the phone call from the lawyer, and they slowly peel back the onion of your case and will kind of continue to ask questions or ask for you to further explain things if they feel like they're going to take your case. But I've experienced lawyers where I got on the phone, they asked me to just kind of like say what my disabilities are and give a pretty quick background of like what happened, under 2 minutes quick, and then they just said, no, I don't think I'm the right fit for you. And I kind of believe it's because of my diagnoses, my autism and my PTSD and ADHD, anxiety, depression. Those aren't things that are easy to prove in court. Invisible disabilities just aren't really understood. And I definitely think that I've gotten no's from people when they hear what my disabilities are or when they hear what my accommodation requests are, which I understand. I wouldn't want somebody to work with me that doesn't know about autism and has some sort of a stigma in their head about it. I don't want a lawyer like that. But you don't know that when you look at somebody's website. You only know that when you get on the phone. So that was something that took a lot of learning for me because the calls weren't consistent. My first 5 calls with lawyers trying to get somebody to represent me had such a variety in what information do they want? How extensive do they want me to be? Are they willing to give me a second if I get emotional, or can I hear them getting aggravated? It's all sides of the spectrum in my experience when talking to lawyers, and because of that, I can never predict what a call is going to be like, how much it's going to take out of me, how much do I need to prep for it. I've also been just completely stood up on calls before, which really, really stinks because they cause me so much anxiety and it takes so much out of me to prepare for them, but it's all just a part of the experience, and I wish that somebody had told me that there is no right way to handle an initial lawyer call because they're all different, and don't come into a call with a plan of what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, because really you're not going to be given the chance to speak how you want to speak. You're going to be asked questions and steered through a scorecard of your desirability for the law firm to take on your case. And that's something that I want to talk about too. Lawyers don't care about everything that you have experienced. They don't even care to know the full story or the full timeline. They just kind of want to know what started, how did it end, where are we at now? And to me, it felt like I was just kind of a scorecard. I get pluses or I get minuses depending on how I answer the questions. So what are your disabilities? I can get a negative on that if it's a disability that this law firm isn't familiar with and doesn't have the desire to work with. Did you file formal HR requests? I say yes to that one, and that's normally a plus because that's beneficial. That makes your case easier to pursue. But there are going to be questions like, why do you think that your employer did this to you? And the answer to that is because of your protected class, because of your disabilities. But if you're a normal person, like we all are, you might say, I don't know, she might have been having a bad day, or some sort of compassionate alternative to they didn't like me and they wanted to discriminate against me. That's not the right answer, definitely in court, but sometimes a lawyer sees that answer and then doesn't want to work with you because you seem too soft, you seem like you're too understanding, and you might slip up and say some things. It's difficult. It's so difficult to feel like you're kind of being put on this pedestal. And when I say you, I mean the discrimination that you experienced, the trauma that you experienced, and the weeks, months, whatever of pain that you suffered is put on a pedestal to just be examined and poked at and judged. It might be a moment where it's just a couple minutes and you get off and you kind of feel dismissed, and that stinks. What's worse is when you get off and you feel empowered and they let you talk for an hour and you think that this is going to go somewhere. This was a good experience. You're physically exhausted and emotionally exhausted because you ran through everything and dug all this back up, and then you get an email in a couple days saying, no, we're not going to take your case, but here's 5 more lawyers that maybe you might want to contact. It's not an easy process. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that like what I'm saying here is actually way off base and that other people have had better experiences than I have. I acknowledge that each case is case by case and what happened, how blatant it was, how long it went on for, what disabilities are included, things like that are going to change. But in my experience with a long-term, well-documented, extreme case of just kind of blatant discrimination for months by multiple people, well-documented medical records, well-documented HR communications, all of that. And me too, I'll add that. Got all my information pulled up. I've got answers to all the questions. I've got research under my belt of what does a lawyer want when they ask this type of question. Like I'm trying to put myself in their mind to make this easier for them and to be somebody that they would want to work with. I feel like I'm such a valuable partner in my case. I'm not somebody that's just like looking to be saved. Like I've got it all figured out and I just need somebody to do the legal stuff for me. But I can't find anyone. It has been so difficult. I wish that like all these little things were things that I knew before I started the process, mainly because I have spent so much time trying to find out what the experience was going to be like, how I'm supposed to handle it, what should I do, what should I be prepared for, and there aren't really answers to that out there. It is such a different experience depending on who you're talking to and depending on your case. I acknowledge that I rambled for a while here. I've been holding on to all this information, trying to find a time to make nice, well thought, planned, scripted videos for other people as resources. And those resources just aren't happening because of it. So hopefully you guys will accept resources in this format of me just rambling. But let me know if this is good. Did this work? Did this help anybody? Is this beneficial? Does anybody have questions? I just struggle to organize myself and to feel inspired enough to say, this is something somebody would want to know. Let me like get it on camera. And I just end up not doing anything. So to summarize, file your EEOC case as soon as possible. Get an interview on the books. You can cancel it later if you decide not to follow through. Employment law is not like normal law. There's not a lot of contingencies offered. There's no big payout, so lawyers are less inclined to want to take on your case. They don't like to take the sloppy cases. They only want kind of the cut and dry ones that are quick to get through. You're not going to find a lawyer the first time around. They're not going to be enjoyable. They're going to be rushed, cold. They're going to steer you and kind of direct the conversation, which is fine, but be aware of it. It'll take multiple conversations for your full story to unravel. You're not telling your full story when you have that first interview conversation. You don't know how long those calls will last. They could be anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour and a half. Good lawyers will offer those for free. You shouldn't be getting charged for that. But I am getting to a point now where I'm starting to have to look into law firms that charge for just your intake interview. And lastly, be prepared to just kind of feel like all of your stuff is out for everyone to see and you're just getting judged on how good or bad your trauma was. And you're kind of just a scorecard of, are there enough positives with this case that my firm wants to take it on? Or, nah, seems like it's not the best investment for us, so we'll just pass you on to somebody else. And I say all of this without any contempt. It is what it is. I'm not in a place to start talking about reform here, but for people that are having to go through it, it's not a fun process. And I hope that maybe this makes it a little bit easier for you. Maybe you feel a little bit more prepared for that first call. I don't know. Ask me questions if you have them. Okay, good luck.